My name is Kat, and I'm the lead principal at Catalyst Methods, a research consulting firm I started a few months ago. I wanted to share some tips with you today on how to conduct interviews for your research. A lot of times what I like to do is first kind of think of all the possible questions that I could ask, write them down, think about how long I want the interview to last, and then start cutting questions from there. Another thing that I like to think about a lot is the order of the questions that you ask. You want to make sure that you're not leading them on or assuming any responses. So for example, for some work that I've done interviewing parents, I'm not going to ask, how long do you read to your child a day? I might first ask them, do you read to your child? When you're asking your questions, make sure to include a specific time frame that you're asking about. So for example, one parent might be answering the question about, on an average weekday, this is how many minutes I spend reading to my child, versus another parent might think about in an average week. A lot of times when you're asking parents about what they do with kids, there's going to be a distinction between what they do on a weekday versus on a weekend, and make sure you include that in your question. Write out a script for yourself at the very beginning that you tell the participants. So you want to make sure that you set the interview up in the same way for all your participants. So I typically tell them, thank you for participating in the study. I'll let them know how long the interview will be. I'll let them know it's going to be audio recorded or video recorded, what's going to happen to those data after the interview. And I'll also give them some time at the end to ask any questions that they have. So a lot of times when we conduct these interviews, we might be asking about some sensitive topics, and we want to make sure there's that open line of communication between you and your research participant. So, give them a few moments to ask some questions if they have any. Make sure when you're doing your interview that you're not imparting any judgment on the participants' responses in any way. You don't want to be biasing the data that you're getting based on what they think you want to hear. So even if you're audio recording your interviews, I would highly suggest that you take notes and make sure you capture things like sarcasm that's used, if there's any distractions that are happening, things that someone reading a transcript of that audio recording wouldn't be able to understand. Any additional notes that you have about how the interview went, any impressions that you had about your participant, make sure to write those down and keep it together with the audio recording. A lot of times you might be in a position where you're interviewing two participants in the same day. Make sure that you compile these notes after each participant and don't wait, because you will forget what happened.